welcome back to our Facebook Live session. Today, I have a special guest with me, Jolie, and Jolie is the expert attorney. So today we have a pretty intense topic. We're talking everything about guns and how it relates to your medical card. So we figured we would give the doctor a rest today and let the experts talk what they know best. So Jolie, without further ado, let's hear a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for having me, and glad to give the doc a break. I think he's over at the Board of Medical Licensure doing his thing, which part of my practice is healthcare. So I do a lot of healthcare work, representing hospitals, nursing homes. So I'm kind of a unique attorney in that I do a lot of regulatory work. I'm not so much a litigator who goes out and sues and whatever, but I do a lot of regulatory, a lot of information, a lot of representing doctors, nurses before the various Board of Medical Licensure, Board of Nursing. I deal with hospitals and nursing homes representing before the Department of Health, dealing with surveys, dealing with where they go out and audit various healthcare facilities and cite them for deficiencies and help them when they have to do. And y'all are gonna know these terms. They're not new to me, but I help them getting their corrective action plans before the board, Department of Health, and the various regulatory bodies so that they can come back into compliance with the laws. So that's a little bit about my background. I do have a master's in health law. I'll share with you a little. I got into this area by happenstance. Unfortunately, my late husband had cancer, and I was amazed at the amount of people that told us that the marijuana would help with things like the nausea and the inability to eat and some of those difficulties. So we had kind of dove into this way back when, before Initiative 65, before a lot of this got off the ground in Mississippi, but it was available in other states. Unfortunately, my husband did not survive his bout with cancer, but it piqued my interest. And being the regulatory attorney I am, and also working in the healthcare field, I had clients who were talking about what is going on in this medical marijuana. We use the term medical marijuana. So we, got on a plane and went out to Oklahoma and started looking into it. Came back and we started off with the Initiative 65. And again, I work close with the Department of Health. So we had discussions back and forth on what is this going to look like in our state and what are we doing? So just by virtue of knowing those people who were drafting the regulations first under Initiative 65, which they had, kudos to them. They were working on this way before, way back when. And then when the brakes were put on, and then when we had it passed into law, worked with them and kind of talking with the Department of Health. So that brings me fast forward to where I am today, which is knee deep in marijuana in the weeds.
Yeah, pun intended, right?
Right, right.
Well, my condolences goes out to you, Jolie, for your husband, and I'm so glad that you're here sharing your knowledge with us today about what is a very hot topic, and that is, guns. So just kicking it off with a big question: can individuals with a medical marijuana card legally own a firearm?
That question's fully loaded. Again, pun intended. That was fun. Okay. It depends. Okay, that's a good answer. I'm going to start with, we are the medical marijuana industry. Marijuana is still a Scheduled 1 narcotic. Okay, so it is not allowed on a federal level. It is allowed on a state by state basis. Okay, Mississippi has adopted the Medical Cannabis Act, the Mississippi Medical Cannabis Act, making marijuana legal, medical marijuana legal in the state of Mississippi. Now, I give you that. I know everybody knows that, but we're at the same situation with marijuana and guns. On a federal level, it is illegal to be addicted or in possession or using a controlled substance and possessing a gun.
Hmm.
Same on the state level. If you go to our state, and that is under the Gun Control Act. And so, as to feds, yes, marijuana is illegal, and so is possession of a gun while using marijuana, medical marijuana, even if you have a card. On a state level, both medical marijuana and possession of a gun, whether you're a card holder or a caregiver who is in possession of a gun, it is legal. In fact, our statute under, I think it's, let me see, 41-137-15, Mississippi statute specifically says you have the right to bear arms. You have the right to have a gun, purchase a gun, be in possession of a gun. If whether you are a medical marijuana card holder or a caregiver, a licensed caregiver, and you may purchase a gun, you may purchase ammunition, and you may be in possession. So that's the federal, that's the state, and it's the same issue, whether you have the card or not, illegal federally, same with the right to possess a gun. And I give this caveat. If you are not a card holder and you are in possession of marijuana, it is illegal both on a federal and a state level.
Okay.
Because you are not following your state law. Because if you are in possession of marijuana without a card, it's illegal, state or federal. Same with if you get pulled over and you get arrested for possession of marijuana and your card is outdated and you have a gun, you violated 2 laws. But if you seek the protection of getting a card, I think your last topic was why buy legal, and that's my theme. Why buy legal? Get a card, buy legal. You have the fullest protection of our state law to have the card and have a gun and carry.
Okay. So what circumstance would it go to federal if somebody would get pulled over and they have a gun and they have a medical card? Which one would rule first, the state law or the federal law?
Okay, excellent question. And I'm also going to back up because I want to say that hemp is legal on a federal level.
Okay.
So if you are in possession of hemp products, CBD products, and you have a gun, that is legal. But keep your receipts with you. Keep your hemp products in the bottle where you bought it. Because if you get tested and you test positive for THC, until we can ferret out and have unique testing features that can extract the various forms of THC, you're going to have to argue it's not marijuana, but you're legally in possession of a gun and you're in compliance with both federal and state law because it's hemp and not marijuana. So, but okay, you're back to your question.
Yes. And that was, when does it apply federally? So which law are you protected under, the state or the federal law? And when does it escalate federally?
Okay. Now, under the federal law, there is the Roboter-Farr Act that prohibits, and it is followed up by a case, U.S. versus McIntosh. And both of those tell us that the feds are prohibited from using, the Department of Justice is prohibited from using federal funds to prosecute somebody for using marijuana, and so long as you are complying with the state law. Now, this is, if y'all are up to speed, you know that we just had a lawsuit filed Tuesday challenging our First Amendment rights on freedom of speech, challenging the state's advertising law. They cite this same theory of saying that, you cannot use funds to go out and prosecute people for violating a state law. But so I think that this law, I use it to say, if you are following our state law, the feds cannot use funds to go prosecute you for either possession of marijuana or possession of a firearm. And I say that, I'll stand by that and defend somebody so long as you are following the state law. Why buy legal? Because you have the protection. Yes, you should carry your medical card with you at all times. Put it right there next to your driver's license.
Perfect.
Yes, opioids, I'm reading some of these questions, are a controlled substance. Um, yes, you should not be in possession of a controlled substance. You should not be using a gun when you are under and have are using controlled substances. Now, the case law is split. The circuit courts. We have a circuit court out of Ninth Circuit that says you cannot be in possession or you cannot own a gun if you're under a controlled substance or addiction, and which is marijuana and opioids. And then there is the Fifth Circuit, which actually gets to a gentleman who actually had a court order against him because he not only was he he used controlled substances, but he also had a charge against him for abuse, spousal abuse, and he challenged his right to bear arms, saying that he has a Second Amendment right to carry a gun, even if he is using a controlled substance or has this assault charge against him. And that in that case, whether we like the gentleman or not, because subsequently he actually got a hold of a gun and shot a bunch of people in Texas. But it's still, he's saying that's his right under the Second Amendment. And in that particular case, the Fifth Circuit said, yes, you do have a right under the Second Amendment, and we can't interfere with that right. However, that case is going up and it's going before the U.S. Supreme Court. And we don't know the outcome of it, but that will give us, there's no U.S. Supreme Court, the law of the land, interpreting our Second Amendment rights versus the Gun Control Act, which of those federal laws governs and controls. Now, at the same time, I'm going to give you the case of Deja Taylor. Miss Taylor had a 6-year-old child. She was a marijuana user. She had also used other controlled substances, which is where we're going to get some of this case law. And she had a 6-year-old. Her state allowed medical marijuana, but they said that's not, that doesn't mean that you, are free to do whatever you want. And they actually used the federal law to go after her because they said she had not appropriately safeguarded her gun and was using controlled substances. Her 6-year-old got a hold of the gun, took it to first grade, and shot his teacher.
Wow.
So that's it hasn't gone to the Supreme Court. We don't know. We're as in much of a disarray on your rights for gun as we are on your rights to have marijuana.
Wow. And that leads me to another question, Julie, because you were talking about how she didn't safeguard her rifle in her home. Now, are there specific restrictions or requirements for storing, your firearm in your house where a medical marijuana card is present? Outside of the typical safety measures that you need to be taking with storing your rifle correctly. Now, does that mean anything different if there's a medical card user inside of the home? Are there different safeguards that they need to comply to?
Not that I am aware of any particular, this is what you need to do. I mean, use common sense. There is, I know that in the actual law, it doesn't excuse you from negligence or gross negligence. So if you allow somebody, to use a gun and you were negligent in Mississippi's law, it says you can possess a gun. But then there's another part that says, it doesn't protect you from negligence or gross negligence or, unprofessional conduct if you're a physician. So those standard laws would still typically apply that say you were, in this case with the minor child, I think like a DHS got involved saying that, the child was unsupervised. She had actually had a couple of run-ins and had already shot her gun out, in public. And so they were able to go and get her to enter a plea in that particular case. But without it, they were throwing out different laws and theories, one of which is the federal laws, and the other was just some of the standard state laws that say, you acted irresponsibly.
Yeah, absolutely. Be responsible at all costs, no matter, if you're a medical card holder or not a medical card holder. Gun
Or a
safety,
caregiver.
yeah, or a caregiver is super important. Now, I know one big question is, if you have a medical card, does that affect your ability to purchase firearms in the future?
It's the same. Right now, you can't purchase federally. Okay, you need to use a private based upon our state law. And you've got a medical card. I'm not talking about people without the card. If you don't have a card and you use marijuana, I implore you to go get one, if for nothing else than to give you the full protection of our state law. If you don't use our state law, you don't have those protections, and you're not protected from the federal law or the cases that are being established, like US v. McIntosh and some of these provisions. But if you are a medical marijuana card holder, you can purchase from a private entity in our state law, because our state says you have a right to bear arms. It's the same issue, I say, as going and getting your card. It's still illegal federally, but you can go buy marijuana from a state-approved dispensary, and you can grow marijuana from a state-approved cultivation, and you can process it through state-approved processing. It's still illegal. Same thing applies to our gun laws. So, to me, I'm like, it's the same concept.
Okay.
One is legal, one is not. Feds still not, state legal. So by private.
Okay, that's really, really informative. Now, do you have any advice for individuals who are possessing both a medical marijuana card and are desiring to own firearms legally outside of what you just mentioned?
Not other than that. I cannot emphasize enough, follow the state's law. That gives you your protection. If you're not going to follow the state's law, you don't have either federal or state protection. Under the federal law, now I see this like I think this is amazing. The alcohol, tobacco, firearms, ATF has on their application, it says, do you use marijuana? And if you check yes, if you check no and you're using it, you've committed perjury. But if you check yes, they cannot fire you. They used to fire you, but now they're saying we're no longer going to fire you because you're a card holder. And at the end it says, guess what? So long as you are following your state law. That is the key. So long as you follow the state law. If you follow the state's law, you have that as your protection. And you can carry and you can buy and you can do whatever, and you have an arm and a leg to stand on if somebody challenges you. You say, under the Roboter-Farr Act and under the McIntosh case, you can't come prosecute me, feds, because I'm following my state law.
So when in doubt, follow your state law at all costs. So that seems like, well, that's the state guard here, because it's a lot to navigate. It's complex between the state and federal laws, and how do you keep up with that? So you're saying to stay in compliance with both your medical marijuana card and your firearm ownership, follow what your state law says.
Absolutely. And be aware that every state is not the same. Some states may not allow guns. Some states, Mississippi does. We do, and we give you the fullest protection we can. While our program is so narrow in the conditions, it is a very, very thought out, well written law in the protections it afforded the people who can get a card. So I think that the biggest thing, and look, this is what I even tell the department, is we should allow people to go out and get cards all day long, because then we can protect them and it's safe. and it's safer than hemp-derived products. And you also, like I said at the beginning, hemp is legal on a federal level, so you can be in possession of hemp and a gun and be in compliance with federal law. But if somebody challenges and tests you and you test positive for THC and they say it's over 0.3% delta 9 and it's marijuana, then now you violated both the state and federal law. So, I'm all for give everybody a card and let everybody follow the state law until the feds can get on board.
Absolutely. Now, Julie, I know there's some people in the comments here. Do you want me to read them off for you, or do you have them up where you can kind of recap some of these questions that are coming through?
I've tried to answer them. No, you cannot grow your own gun or marijuana, or hemp for that matter. You have to have a license to grow hemp. And that's really all you have to have. Once you have a license, you can do whatever you want with hemp. You can, as long as you test it before you harvest it. And then after you harvest it, do whatever. There's no regs, there's no advertising restrictions, nothing. But be careful using that because we have no clue what's in that product. So to recap on the previous statement, I'm going to read this question.
Okay,
if you have a medical marijuana card, you cannot go into a gun store and purchase a gun. And secondly, that means the state reports to the federal government who marijuana cards have been issued to. In Mississippi, if you have a medical marijuana card, our law says that you may, and you do have the right to go purchase a gun. You cannot go to a federal store, but you can buy private, is basically what our law actually says. And the feds say you cannot. So again, the feds say you're not allowed to have a card, and they say you're not allowed to have a gun with a card. It's a kind of interesting dynamic there because the feds speaking to both. But anyway, my take is your state law allows you to. And, one of the things, and I guess that the suggestion is buy private. If you can't buy private, don't buy. But it's exactly the same where we are with marijuana is my point. It's illegal federally and it's legal state.
Right. Yeah, so you wouldn't go on your street and buy marijuana with your marijuana card. You want to go to a dispensary. So same thing kind of with your guns at a federal level. Now, do most stores, like gun stores in Mississippi, how do they know if it's a federal store or a private store?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Good one.
Okay.
When you buy federally, you've got to fill out the forms. If you've got to fill the forms out and it asks you, even if you buy private, wherever you buy, when you fill something out and it asks you if you are a medical marijuana user, and you are, answer it truthfully. And then the state where you're purchasing it will say, this is legal, this is not. And I'll give you an example. We have security guards in the marijuana industry who carry, enhanced carry, who are guarding cultivation facilities. And they're participating in the program because they're employed by a cultivation, yet they carry. Okay. So, our state is not going to go after you. And the feds cannot prosecute you if you are following a state law.
I think that's the bottom line right there. Just always follow the state law. Now, I know there was a user, and you might have addressed it in that previous statement about the enhanced carry. They can still apply for the enhanced carry, still having a medical card, correct?
Yes, as long as you fill out. I would think you can apply for either or, as long as you answer it truthfully. And if you're declined, you're declined. But that's why I was talking about the security guards. I mean, they've got, special rights to carry and be on school campuses and whatnot. Um, but they're actively participating in patrolling, let's say Ole Miss. They're protecting, marijuana, which is
Mhm.
illegal to be involved in.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Really, really good questions coming through here, Jolie, and I think we have addressed most of them. And I think some people were still wondering about that question I asked you about how would we know about the gun store. So I don't know if there's any resources that we can maybe link in this group later for folks, or is it just kind of one of those gray areas of how do we know if it's a federal store or a private store?
It's going to ask you if you have. I mean, it'll ask you now. I think a lot of them are asking specifically if you have a marijuana card, and I don't know. You're going to have to ask them, like anything else. Are you, federal, private, pawn shop? Hey, I'd like to buy one. It's going to depend on the location, the situation, and the person. I would
Mhm.
be very inquisitive as when you're doing that, and I would also know the law of the state in which you're in. If you go to a different state, know the law for that state because they are different. They are very much different. And in Mississippi and our southern states, we've given as much protection as we can to you,
Mhm.
but that's the end of it. We give you that, but at the end of the day, it's the same. If you've got a marijuana card and you're asking these questions, you're doing something illegal on a federal level anyway.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I know we're coming up here on time, Julie, but I just wanted to ask you, do you know of any laws that might be coming abroad or future changes to updated laws concerning medical marijuana cards and firearm ownership?
Yes. I think that the case I talked to you about, I think, the one in the Fifth Circuit, there's a case that has gone up on appeal in the Fifth Circuit, Rahami, and it's from this gentleman, that actually had a court order with I think a restraining order, and because he had the restraining order because of the abuse or domestic violence, they also prohibited him from carrying a gun, and he challenged that under his Second Amendment rights, and that will be making its way. I think that if I understand correctly, I think the U.S. Supreme Court has taken it up on appeal just this month. That will be very informative for us
Mhm.
to see how the U.S. Supreme Court addresses your Second Amendment rights, and when there's limitations and when you are fair in limiting those, and that'll kind of coincide with the Gun Control Act of 1968.
Perfect. Beautiful. Well, Julie, so much great information today. For those of you who are watching live, thank you for engaging in such informative questions and replay this, share this with friends and family because I think this is a big topic in Mississippi and there's a lot of myths around it. Bottom line, yes, you can have your guns. Yes, you can smoke your cannabis too. Follow your state law at all costs and you will have protection.
Mhm.
Well, we are so excited that you are here with us. We'll be back not next week because it is Thanksgiving. So hopefully you're taking much deserved time to, yep, it's hunting season. Yep, do some hunting, eating some turkey, enjoying some cannabis and just relaxing on the couch as you should. And then we'll be back the following week and we'll have Dr. Kennard back here with us exploring more topics about cannabis. Thank you
And
so much.
as with anything else, do not fire off your gun while impaired.
Absolutely.
Whether it's alcohol or marijuana, it's the same laws apply.
Yep. Be safe and happy cannabis consuming.
Yes,
See you
and happy
later.
Thanksgiving.
Yep. See you guys previous week.